In the vast and mysterious lands of the Middle East, where history and faith intertwine, lie secrets buried for millennia, awaiting discovery. Esteemed listener, this documentary takes us on an enlightening journey through time and land, exploring some of the most significant archaeological findings that have illuminated the pages of the Bible, transforming the sacred text into a living testimony of historical events. Join me as we follow the footsteps of the ancients, unveiling the truth buried beneath layers of earth and time, and discover how archaeology and faith converge to enlighten one of the most influential and revered texts of humanity. Prepare to see the Bible in a new light as history comes alive in this thrilling documentary about archaeological discoveries that confirm its truthfulness. Before we continue, please support us by liking this video, subscribing to the channel if you haven't yet, and don't forget to hit the notification bell so YouTube alerts you whenever we upload a new video. Archaeology is a discipline that can take years, decades, and even centuries. The painstaking work of digging and sifting through vast expanses of stones and sandstone is followed by long periods of waiting, analysis, and interpretation of the discovered artifacts. However, in recent years, there have been regular announcements of significant developments and discoveries. Some of these were expected, but others are quite surprising, deepening and broadening our understanding of the biblical world. The Bible is the oldest and most historically accurate writing ever to have existed. Increasingly, archaeological discoveries support and prove that all the stories and passages depicted in this book are real. Here are 9 of the most relevant archaeological stories related to the Bible that have made headlines in the media due to their historical and documentary significance in supporting and corroborating biblical accounts. 1. The inscription of Pontius Pilate. Pontius Pilate, also known as Pontius Pilate, was a member of the Equestrian Order and the 5th prefect of the Roman province of Judea between the years 26 and 36 AD during the reign of Emperor Tiberius. The canonical Gospels present him as responsible for the execution and crucifixion of Jesus of Nazareth, making him possibly the most famous Roman governor in history. Pontius Pilate was virtually unknown until his appearance in one of the most transcendent episodes in Christian history, the Passion and Death of Jesus. Besides his presence in the Gospels, few Roman references and a handful of coins supposedly minted by the prefect evidenced his existence. This was until the discovery in 1961 of the Pilate stone, a piece of limestone carved with the name of Pontius Pilate inscribed on it. The Italian archaeologist Antonio Frova and his team found the Pilate stone during an excavation of an ancient Roman theater in Caesarea, Israel, built by decree of King Herod the Great around 10 BC. The inscription is significant because it is accepted as an authentic 1st century Roman inscription with the name of Pontius Pilate. Although eroded by time, some fragments of the inscription can be distinguished in the limestone. Apparently, it is a dedicatory stone that says, "To the divine Augustus Tiberius, Pontius Pilate, prefect of Judea, dedicates this." This find corroborates what is stated in the scriptures, where Pontius Pilate is mentioned several times. 2. The Tunnel of Hezekiah. Hezekiah was the 13th king of the kingdom of Judah, son of King Ahaz, and reigned approximately between 716 and 686 BC. He is one of the kings mentioned in the genealogy of Jesus in the Gospel of Matthew. Hezekiah was one of the reformer kings due to the changes he implemented in his people. The Old Testament mentions that King Hezekiah ordered the construction of a tunnel from the springs of Gihon to divert water to the city, as a defensive measure to provide Jerusalem with water while Sennacherib approached to besiege the city. In the 2nd book of Chronicles, chapter 32, verse 30, we read, "This same Hezekiah blocked the upper outlet of the waters of Gihon and brought them straight westward to the city of David. And Hezekiah prospered in all his works." King Sennacherib of Assyria sent an official titled Rabshakeh to intimidate the Jews, shouting in Hebrew to the people who were on the walls. Rabshakeh tried to destroy the morale of the Jews and their will to resist, threatening them with death from hunger and thirst. The second book of Chronicles, chapter 32, verse 11, alludes to this. Hezekiah deceives you to deliver you to death, to hunger, and to thirst, saying, "The Lord our God will deliver us from the hands of the king of Assyria." However, the Jews would not need to surrender or die of thirst, as Hezekiah had already made arrangements for his men to block the waters of the springs that were outside the city. Thus, the Assyrian besiegers would have difficulty finding enough water for themselves. But where did the Jews get water while they were surrounded? The Bible tells us that Hezekiah blocked the upper spring of the waters of Gihon and conducted them directly to the west, to the city of David, through a tunnel dug in solid rock. This tunnel still exists today and is considered one of the great feats of ancient engineering. Currently, those visiting Jerusalem can walk through this same tunnel, which the engineers of Hezekiah used to divert the waters of the Gihon springs, which normally flowed out of the city. The tunnel, approximately 533 meters long, was built around 701 BC and is one of the wonders of ancient engineering. Discovered in 1838 by the renowned American archaeologist Edward Robinson, this tunnel revealed one of its construction secrets when a young Arab found an ancient inscription on one of its walls. The inscription explained how two teams of men, working from opposite ends, simultaneously excavated until they met in the middle. The inscription was subsequently taken to Istanbul by order of the Ottoman rulers of the city. It says the following: "The tunnel was completed while the excavators wielded their tools, each man towards his companion, and with 3 cubits more to excavate, the voice of a man calling his companion was heard. The excavators dug each toward the other, tool against tool, and the water sprang from the spring to the pool a distance of 100 cubits. If the tunnel had been straight, it would have measured 335 meters long. That is, it would have been 40% shorter." The tunnel's exit leads to the Pool of Salam, where Jesus sent the blind man to wash his eyes in the waters after he had spit on the ground and made mud with the saliva. The blind man regained his sight, as alluded to in the Gospel of John, chapter 9. 3. The Tailor Prism. In 1830, a man named Robert Taylor found a clay cylinder measuring approximately 15 inches. This is known as the Tailor Prism, which contains the words of Sennacherib, king of Assyria at that time. This prism dates from 700 BC and was made in ancient Assyria. The cuneiform writing in the Akkadian language it contains refers to the Israeli king Hezekiah and the Assyrian king Sennacherib, both mentioned in the biblical record of the second book of Kings, chapters 18 and 19, as well as in the second book of Chronicles and the book of the prophet Isaiah. In the inscription, the Assyrian king recounts how he besieged 46 of his fortified cities and numerous surrounding villages, and conquered them with battering rams and siege engines. He plundered from them 200,000 and 150 people, young and old, men and women, as well as countless horses, mules, donkeys, camels, and large and small cattle, which he took and considered booty. He himself, Hezekiah, I enclosed in Jerusalem, his royal city, like a bird in a cage. The cities that I had plundered, I detached from his country and gave them to Metinti, king of Ashdod, to Padi, king of Ekron, and to Cybele, king of Gaza, thus diminishing his territory. Hezekiah himself, because of the terrible splendor of my majesty, and the Arabs and mercenary troops that he had brought to reinforce Jerusalem, his royal city, abandoned him. Later, he sent me tribute to Nineveh, my lordly city, 30 talents of gold, 800 talents of silver, precious stones, antimony, large blocks of red stone, beds inlaid with ivory, chairs inlaid with ivory, elephant skins, ebony wood, boxwood, and all kinds of valuable treasures. His daughters, concubines, musicians, to deliver the tribute and render obedience as a slave. He sent his personal messengers. When comparing these words inscribed on the prism with what the Bible declares, we can see that it is exactly what was declared by Sennacherib. Let us read in the second book of Chronicles, chapter 32, verse 1. After these things and this faithfulness, Sennacherib, king of Assyria, came and invaded Judah and camped against the fortified cities, intending to conquer them. The Bible says that Hezekiah gave as tribute 300 talents of silver and 30 talents of gold. This payment is confirmed on the Prism of Sennacherib, although he claims to have received 800 talents of silver. Despite this payment, the messengers of the Assyrian king planted themselves in front of the walls of Jerusalem, mocking Jehovah God and threatening his holy city. The Prism records how Sennacherib subdued several cities of the kingdom of Judah, but does not mention that he did the same with Jerusalem. Why? In chapter 37, verses 33 and 34 of the book of the prophet Isaiah is the answer. The biblical account narrates that, through Isaiah, who was in Jerusalem, Jehovah said this about Sennacherib: "He shall not enter this city, nor shoot an arrow there, nor come before it with shield, nor cast up a mound against it. By the way that he came, by the same shall he return, and into this city he shall not come, saith the Lord." Did Jehovah stop Sennacherib as promised? Of course. On that same night, the angel of God struck down 185,000 Assyrians. Sennacherib withdrew and returned to Nineveh, where sometime later, 2 of his own sons killed him while he was bowing before his god Nisroch. Several attempts have been made to explain the death of the 185,000 Assyrian soldiers, suggesting the possibility of an epidemic, such as bubonic plague or another contagious disease. The Jewish historian of the 1st century, Flavius Josephus, cites the priest and historian Berosus, saying, "Sennacherib, from his expedition to Egypt, returned to Jerusalem, where he found his troops commanded by Rabshakeh in great danger because of the plague. God sent them a disease that, on the first night they besieged the city, killed 185,000 soldiers, including their captains and centurions." The Prism of Sennacherib does not record any of this, but the usual boastful tone in the inscriptions of the Assyrian sovereigns would make it very difficult for Sennacherib to record such a defeat. On the other hand, the historian Herodotus mentions that, "During the night a swarm of field mice gnawed the quivers, the bows, and also the armlets of the shields, completely incapacitating Sennacherib's army for military action." 4. The David inscription, Tel Dan Stele. The Bible describes David as a man after God's heart and as a king who reigned for 40 years, firmly establishing the city of David and the Israelite kingdom, which was inherited by his son Solomon. For archaeologists, however, the record is not so clear. Observing the evidence from excavations in modern Israel, some experts argued that the Bible greatly exaggerates David's historical significance, even suggesting that he is just a myth, a heroic fiction, and a nationalist folk tale. However, after decades of debate, new discoveries affirm the historicity of David. This growing body of evidence, ranging from monumental inscriptions to remains of ancient buildings, solidly supports the biblical account. The first breakthrough occurred in 1993, when the team led by the archaeologist Avraham Baron discovered a stone fragment in Tel Dan, in northern Israel, with an inscription that says, "House of David." The inscription is in ancient Semitic and dates from the 9th century BC, indicating that it was part of a monument that the Arameans built to flaunt their victories over Israel. An article published in Bible History Daily affirmed that, although some doubted the inscription, "House of David," the majority of Bible scholars and archaeologists accepted without difficulty that the Tel Dan Stele is the first solid proof that King David of the Bible is a historical character. 5. The Mesha Stele, or Moabite stone. The Moabite stone, also known as the Mesha Stele, is a black basalt monument just over a meter high with Moabite writing. It dates from the year 835 BC and was found in August 1868 by the German missionary Frederick Augustus Klein in the lands of ancient Moab in Dibon, Jordan. It is exactly 124 centimeters high, 79 centimeters wide, and 36 centimeters thick, and refers to biblical characters such as the Israeli king Omri and the Moabite king Mesha. The inscription of 34 lines, the most extensive recovered from ancient Moab, was written in the Paleo-Hebrew alphabet and erected by Mesha as a record and memorial of his victories in the revolt against the kingdom of Israel, which he undertook after the death of the ruler Ahab. In the second book of Kings, chapter 3, verses 4 and 5, we read, "Then Mesha, king of Moab, breeder of cattle, paid the king of Israel 100,000 lambs and 100,000 rams with their wool. But when Ahab died, the king of Moab rebelled against the king of Israel." As we have mentioned, King Mesha of Moab erected the Moabite stele in honor of his god Chemosh to commemorate the occasion when he freed himself from the domination of Israel. He claims that this domination lasted 40 years and was allowed by Chemosh due to his anger against the land. Generally, it is believed that this Moabite revolt is related to the events narrated in the 3rd chapter of the 2nd book of Kings. On the monument, Mesha boasts of his religiosity, of having built cities, made a road, and obtained a victory over Israel, attributing all the credit to his god Chemosh. As would be expected, Mesha's defeat and the sacrifice of his own son, which are reported in the Bible, are omitted in the inscription, where Mesha glorifies himself. Many of the places that Mesha claims to have captured are mentioned in the Bible, among them Medeba, Ataroth, Nebo, and Jazer. Thus, the stele supports the accuracy of the biblical accounts. It is exceptional that Mesha used the tetragrammaton YHWH, the name of the God of Israel, which some Bible translations render as Yahweh or Jehovah, in line 18 of the inscription. Mesha declares, "I took from there the vessels of Yahweh and dragged them before Chemosh." Outside the Bible, this is probably the oldest record of the use of the divine name. 6. The Cylinder of Cyrus. Known today as the Cylinder of Cyrus, this ancient document was recognized as the world's first document of human rights. It is translated into the 6 official languages of the United Nations, and its provisions are analogous to the first 4 articles of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. The Cylinder of Cyrus is a document issued by Cyrus the Great, consisting of a clay cylinder with inscriptions in Akkadian cuneiform writing. The cylinder was created in 539 BC by order of Cyrus the Great, when he took Babylon from Nabonidus, ending the Neo-Babylonian Empire. It was found in 1879 by an expedition of the British Museum in the temple of the god Marduk in Babylon in present-day Iraq. The piece is covered by 45 lines of Akkadian cuneiform writing, celebrating Cyrus's conquest of the city. Currently, it is on display at the British Museum in London. This cylinder is known for its historical importance and its relationship with the events narrated in the Bible, specifically in the context of the return of the Jews to Jerusalem after the Babylonian captivity. Some key points about the Cylinder of Cyrus include: Number 1. Content of the inscription. The inscription on the cylinder is a decree attributed to Cyrus the Great, which grants freedom to various peoples conquered by the Babylonians. In particular, it mentions the liberation of the Jews, who were taken into captivity in Babylon by Nebuchadnezzar. Number 2. Liberation of the Jews. The Cylinder of Cyrus is considered an important archaeological testimony of Cyrus the Great's policies and the religious tolerance of the Persians. This cylinder records Cyrus's policy of allowing conquered peoples to return to their homelands and restore their places of worship. In the case of the Jews, this aligns with the biblical narrative in the book of Ezra, chapter 1, verses 1 to 4, which mentions that Cyrus issued an edict allowing the Jews to return to Jerusalem and rebuild the temple. This edict resembles the policy reflected in the Cylinder of Cyrus. For the Jews, this document is especially significant because it supports the idea of a permitted return to Jerusalem and the restoration of the temple. Fundamental events in their history. Let us see what is written in Ezra chapter 1, verses 1 to 4. In the first year of Cyrus, king of Persia, that the word of the Lord by the mouth of Jeremiah might be fulfilled, the Lord stirred up the spirit of Cyrus, king of Persia, who made a proclamation throughout all his kingdom, and also in writing, saying, Thus saith Cyrus, king of Persia, the Lord God of heaven hath given me all the kingdoms of the earth, and he hath charged me to build him an house at Jerusalem, which is in Judah. Who is there among you of all his people? His God be with him, and let him go up to Jerusalem, which is in Judah, and build the house of the Lord God of Israel. He is the God, which is in Jerusalem. And whosoever remaineth in any place where he sojourneth, let the men of his place help him with silver, and with gold, and with goods, and with beasts, besides the free will offerings for the house of God that is in Jerusalem. The cylinder, the biblical texts, and the narration of the historian Herodotus are firm evidence that Cyrus was tolerant in his campaigns, both with the Jewish people, allowing them to return, and with the Babylonian population, whose gods and temples he respected. 7. The Pool of Salam. In 2004, at the southern end of Jerusalem, a sewage pipe burst. Consequently, the municipality sent construction workers to repair the damage. However, when this happens in the city of David, not only builders are sent, but also archaeologists. They monitored the excavations and realized that something was not right. They sent everyone away and revealed a series of ancient stone steps, thousands of years old, leading to the Pool of Salam. The Pool of Salam, located in the southern part of the city of David and in the area of the Jerusalem Walls National Park, is an archaeological and historical site of national and international importance. The pool was first built about 2,700 years ago as part of Jerusalem's water supply system in the 6th century BC, during the reign of King Hezekiah, as described in the Bible, in the second book of Kings, chapter 20, verse 20. As for the other acts of Hezekiah, and all his might, and how he made the pool and the aqueduct and brought water into the city, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the Kings of Judah? The Pool of Salam served as a reservoir for the waters of the Gihon Spring, which were diverted through an underground water tunnel, becoming one of the most important areas of Jerusalem at the time of the First Temple. Due to its location and importance, the Pool of Salam was renovated and expanded 2,000 years ago at the end of the Second Temple period, and it is believed that millions of pilgrims used it as a ritual bath before ascending to the temple through the city of David. According to the Gospel of John, it was in the Pool of Salam that Jesus healed the blind man. Let us read in John chapter 9, verse 11. He answered and said, A man that is called Jesus made clay, and anointed mine eyes, and said unto me, Go to the Pool of Salam and wash. And I went and washed, and I received sight. The discovery of the Pool of Salam represents a turning point in the field of biblical archaeology. The American newspaper Los Angeles Times reported thus about the remarkable discovery. Scholars said there was no such Siloam pool and that John was using religious fantasy to explain the matter, said James Hamilton Charlesworth of the Princeton Theological Seminary and New Testament specialist. Now we found the Pool of Salam exactly where John said it was. A gospel believed to be pure theology now turns out to be based on history, he stated on August 9, 2005. Thus, this is an extraordinary example of the historical accuracy of the Bible, which refutes the opinion of many skeptics who considered the Pool of Salam a religious invention. 8. The Hittite Tablets. The Bible was questioned for many years by those who claimed that it mentioned names of people and places that never existed, including the nation of the Hittites, a people of legend that only appeared cited in the Old Testament. This changed when, at the end of the 19th century, the first concrete traces emerged, culminating in 1906, when Hugo Winkler discovered 10,000 clay tablets that documented the history of the Hittite nation. In addition, it was also discovered that this area was the capital of the Hittite nation. The Old Testament names them as Hittites in the Almeida Corrigida Fiel version. Some known references among more than 50 are found in Joshua, where the confederation of peoples, including the Hittites, is mentioned in their struggle against Israel. Let us read in Joshua chapter 11, verse 3. And to the Canaanites on the east and on the west, and to the Amorites, and the Hittites, and the Perizzites, and the Jebusites in the mountains, and to the Hivites under Hermon in the land of Mizpeh. David's army included Hittites among its ranks. Let us read in the first book of Samuel, chapter 26, verse 6. Then said David to Ahimelech the Hittite, and to Abishai the son of Zeruiah, brother to Joab, saying, Who will go down with me to Saul to the camp? And Abishai said, I will go down with thee. The Hittites are also mentioned in the times of King Joram, son of Ahab. Let us read in the second book of Kings, chapter 7, verse 6. For the Lord had made the host of the Syrians to hear a noise of chariots and a noise of horses, even the noise of a great host. And they said one to another, Lo, the king of Israel hath hired against us the kings of the Hittites and the kings of the Egyptians to come upon us. When in 1915 Bedřich Hrozný deciphered their writing, historical knowledge of the customs, laws, commerce, etc., of a people hitherto known only by mentions in the Bible, which textual criticism labeled as allegories, was opened. Thus, once again, the veracity of the Bible was proven. 9. The Deir Allah inscription. According to the Book of Numbers, chapters 22 to 24, Balaam, son of Beor, was hired as a prophet. Indeed, his name appears in 8 different books of the Bible, including letters from the Christian writers Peter and Jude. Balaam lived in the 15th century BC in the upper Euphrates Valley and was hired by Balak, king of Moab, who wanted Balaam to curse the nation of Israel. But was Balaam a historical character or a mere Jewish invention? In 1966, when the Dutch archaeological expedition was excavating the site of Tel Deir Allah in Jordan, they brought to light inscriptions on pieces of plaster. One of them refers to the prophet Balaam, son of Beor, a well-known character in the Bible. After being meticulously collected and photographed with infrared, they were sent to the Central Research Laboratory for Art and Science Objects in Amsterdam for restoration and subsequent translation and interpretation at the Palestinian Archaeological Institute of Leiden University. According to the analyses, the inscriptions date from about 800 BC, with a margin of correction of 70 years, more or less. From the different plaster fragments, the experts formed 2 groups or combinations, which were assembled and framed and are currently displayed at the Archaeological Museum of Amman in Jordan. Although the text has been partially reconstructed, the title of Combination 1, carried out in red, says, Inscription of Balaam, son of Beor, the man who is a seer of the gods. The inscription seems to indicate that Balaam had a divine vision in dreams, in which he warned the people about a catastrophe sent by the goddess Shagar. And the gods came unto him by night, and spoke according to his word. And they spake unto Balaam, son of Beor, saying, He will. Then Balaam rose up in the morning, yea, weeping. Then came unto him Elikah, Why weepest thou? Then he said, Sit thee down, and I will tell thee what the goddess Shagar will do. May she break the rays of heaven in thy cloud, may there be darkness. It is interesting to note the connection between the text found in Deir Allah and the expressions of Balaam's oracles in the biblical narrative. In the inscription found, it reads, Balaam son of Beor, coinciding with Numbers, chapter 22, verse 5. Therefore he sent messengers unto Balaam the son of Beor to Pethor, which is by the river of the land of the children of his people, to call him, saying, Behold, there is a people come out from Egypt. Behold, they cover the face of the earth, and they abide over against me. The general context of the inscription is within the religious vision of the region. We are faced with a clear historical reference outside the Bible from the 8th century BC, recognizing and remembering Balaam. This implies that the biblical characters related to him, such as Balak, Moses, Joshua, and many others, are also indirectly recognized. Esteemed listener, these inscriptions are hundreds of years closer to the events described in the Bible than the oldest manuscripts currently in existence. They are further proof that the Bible presents a reliable record of ancient history. As it says in 2 Timothy, chapter 3, verses 16 and 17, All Scripture is given by inspiration of God and is profitable for doctrine, for reproof, for correction, for instruction in righteousness, that the man of God may be perfect, thoroughly furnished unto all good works. And thus we come to the end of this video. I hope it has been helpful. See you in the next one.